Hello YouTube, this is Asatsu 5 and today I have a review of the Laredo Bowie. Now I've reviewed this knife in the past early in my YouTube career, but the experience I had with this knife was very limited. I've used it, the experience I had with it was cutting water bottles, batoning a little bit. And that was pretty much it. I like to think it was a decent review, but this knife wasn't designed for water bottle cut test and stuff. Although it's a lot of fun, this knife was designed to be a self-defense tool or a fighting Bowie, and you could use it for hunting. There was nothing keeping you from doing that, but I didn't have the experience with it that I've now recently obtained. I was able to carry this in Arkansas. They have less restrictive knife laws in Arkansas than they do in Texas, and I was able to carry it in the city limits. I carried it concealed everywhere I went. Go to restaurants, going to sporting goods store, going to cigar shops. Everywhere I went in town, I carried this knife in my waistband. Also, I've relatively recently, have been putting this knife through some tests in the Battle of the Bowie series. We used it for cutting some water bottles. We enjoy doing that. Also bamboo and meat, clothed meat, and I got to test it in that arena as well. So without further ado, let's review this knife again. Now, yeah, I like this knife. Now, before I get started on the review, I like to get the stats and specifications out of the way, because to me that's the boring part. Anybody can look it up, but it's just convenient that I add them in here so you don't have to look it up. The weight of the Bowie is 16.3 ounces. The blade length is 10.5 inches. Is 5/16 inch thick, and the overall length is 17 1/8 inches. And the handle material is a flux cocobolo. And keep in mind, this knife in particular is the SK5 version. Cold Steel has come out with a new version that's made out of 01. I don't have experience with that particular knife, but the specifications, the size, weight, and everything should be the same. Now, well, let's talk about the knife. Well, first, let me talk a little bit about the history of the Bowie knife. In several videos, I've talked about the history of the Bowie knife. First off, Jim Bowie's original knife most likely resembled nothing that the Bowie knife is how we know it. It had no influence on how Bowie knives looked now. Back then, it was a butcher knife, or is what has been described as a butcher knife. They say that Bowie knives, which they probably didn't call them Bowie knives when they first came out, because Jim Bowie wasn't famous then, but they say the fighting knife or the dueling knife was around before Jim Bowie, and it developed in the Louisiana area, according to Bill Bagwell. And there was a lot of fencing schools in Louisiana. Louisiana was a very European cosmopolitan state, or was it a state then? It was an area, and it's been influenced by the Spanish, the French. It was like a country. It had its own language, its own food, its own culture. And moving forward, after Jim Bowie got famous, people started asking for a knife like Jim Bowie's. And to tell you the truth, depending who you talk to, no one really knows what Jim Bowie's knife looked like. And I like to think of it like this. Jim Bowie's knife collection was a progression of things. He might have had Bowie #1, he might have had the Meso Bowie, he might have had the Moore Bowie, but there's a good possibility that all three of those knives belonged to him. You know, as he went through life, he decided what he liked and didn't like, and he constantly developed what he wanted in a knife. So don't get too hung up on what knife did Jim Bowie use or what was the original Bowie knife. That's almost not important, because the real thing is the fighting knife, the dueling knife. And this is probably one of the most effective fighting knives you can get. Not just this particular one, but others as well. This knife was so effective, and that a couple states, well, some states had like $100 tax or transferal fee on Bowie knives. I know that there was at least 2 or 3 states that passed laws saying that it was a capital felony to kill someone with a Bowie knife. I think Tennessee was one of them. It wasn't necessarily a felony to kill another person, depending on the circumstances, but it became a felony if you used a Bowie knife. That's how effective these Bowie knives were. And this was in a time before revolvers, before repeating firearms. The knife, the sword, they always walked. They never had to be reloaded. They didn't have to. They had no moving parts other than the human wielding them, and they just walked. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about the knife in general, or this knife. As you've seen in my test, if you've seen my Battle of the Bowies test, this knife is a good performer. It has a good bit of heft to it, so it's going to have a lot of cleaving power. It's going to have a lot of momentum, but it's not so heavy that it feels awkward in the hand. You could easily move it around with one hand, but compared to the Bagwell Bowies, this one is noticeably heavier. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is a heavy-duty knife, and you know, Cold Steel makes their knives, you know, almost bulletproof. That's what they tried to do, and I think they achieved that with this design. So it is considerably heavier than the Bagwell Gambler, but it's not so heavy that I would say is unusable or it's not easily used. It's very easily maneuvered, but using the back cut with this knife and using the back cut with the Bagwell knife, this one is going to have more force behind it. Speaking of the back cut, the Foss Edge, Cold Steel advertises that the Foss Edge is fully sharpened. I don't know what happened with mine. I got mine several years ago. Mine did not come with a sharpened Foss Edge, and I had to have my brother work on it to get a decently sharp Foss Edge on it. So I just want to throw that out there. Mine didn't come with a sharpened Foss Edge, but mine did do a good bit of damage with the Foss Edge using a power cut. There's been some comparisons made between this and a Bagwell, and they say this particular knife is a good all-around knife. If you want to buy one Bowie knife that can do just about everything you want it to do, the Laredo is a good choice. If you want to use it for hunting, self-defense, wood processing, this knife can do it. Now, I also want to note that this isn't full tang. It's actually a cable tang. The tang kind of goes to right here, and then it has a steel cable that goes up to the, I guess you would call it the pommel nut. I don't see that being a real big issue. I haven't seen one of these fail, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Now that we got out of, we got the knife talked about, let's talk about the sheath. The sheath, to me, is one of the coolest qualities of this knife. It's a traditional sheath. I don't know the name of this style of sheath. I call it the frog sheath or the concealed carry sheath. The cool thing about this sheath is you can put it cross draw. You can put it on your side through the belt. You can put it through the waistband, and you can carry this knife completely concealed, and no one knows you have it on you. You just untuck your short and you're good to go. I will mention, when I carried this knife in Arkansas, when I sat down in my vehicle in the passenger seat when I was just riding or when I was driving, it felt very comfortable sitting in a vehicle. But when I sat like in on a stool or a chair in a restaurant, it felt like it was footprinting pretty heavily, and that it was poking out a little bit. Although no one confronted me about it, no one seemed to notice, I felt this knife kind of protruding out of my short just a little bit. And walking around, I'd adjust it a little bit every now and then. I asked my friend, hey, can you see this knife? Is it concealed? And he said yes, it was. And he said, it's alright, Austin. When I first got my concealed handgun permit, I really noticed it too. But trust me, it's not noticeable, and you'll forget about it when you carry it on a regular basis. But I just wanted to mention that point. By the way, you can see the wear marks on the sheath when I carried it. And it was very comfortable to carry. Something I noticed though, I carried this in a 6-inch folding knife, the holdout one. I found that the holdout one was more accessible than the Bowie knife, and if I needed to get a knife out in a hurry, that the holdout would probably be the fastest knife to put into action. Because with this one, when I had it concealed, I had to lift up my short, grab the knife, and clear the sheath, which is not impossible to do, but it's a little bit more awkward than grabbing a folding knife and flicking it open. The advantages and disadvantages between carrying this Bowie knife and carrying a large folding knife. The large folding knife in general is going to be a thinner, sharper knife. It's going to have a thinner edge. It's going to be scalpel sharp, razor sharp. You can get this one razor sharp, but it's still thick, relatively thick, so it's still going to push more, has more material to push through, so it's going to have more drag. As opposed to the folding knife, it's going to have less resistance. But also with this knife, it has more momentum, and it's probably going to be more likely to chop someone's hand off than the other. So it's a constant balancing game of what you want in a knife, what you feel more comfortable with, what you feel confident in. That's completely up to you. Whatever you can legally carry, I usually say carry the biggest thing you can legally carry, because reach is your friend in a knife fight. Hopefully you won't get in a knife fight, but reach is a very good ally to have. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, well, the sheath. Let's talk about the new sheath for the Laredo Bowie, which this kind of disappoints me. Cold Steel changed the sheath. They're now coming with a Secure X sheath, which pretty much means you're pretty much limited to wearing it on your belt. I don't know if I'm pretty sure if you put the Secure X sheath in your waistband and you tried to draw the knife, that sheath is coming out of your waistband. With this, let me put it in the sheath to show you. It retains pretty well, even though I'm shaking it. I'm not shaking it hard, but let's see. It still retains in its sheath pretty well. And you normally wouldn't have this sheath upside down, but it's snug in there. but at the same time, it's very fast to get out, or it's relatively fast to deploy for a fixed blade. It takes almost no effort whatsoever. And these leather sheaths, you have to put the knife in there and let it set for a while so the leather can stretch. There's kind of a break-in period. But by the way, this is a forced patina that I put on the blade. It kind of gives it a faux Damascus look, a very ugly Damascus. But you can tell it's not Damascus, but I like the way it turned out. And it helps prevent rust. But anyways, like I was saying, this sheath retains very well, but when you put it in your waistband, you don't have to tighten up your belt so hard that it's cutting off circulation. You just put it in your waistband and it flies out. Now, the new Securex sheath, I don't think you can put in your waistband. And there's the price, MSRP $227.99. But I don't like that sheath. Well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking to yourself, well, if I want this knife and I want the good sheath, I'm either going to have to buy old stock or I'm going to have to get a used one. Well, that's not necessarily the case. You can get the new 01 sheath, the new 01 knife, and get a custom sheath made from River City Sheaths. River City Sheaths makes a sheath called the Southern Comfort sheath. It's a sheath inspired by the Bowie knife sheath, like this, but it's made out of kydex, and it has a frog on it, so you can put it in your waistband, and it draws out real easily. And if you ask me, I don't have experience with it, but from what I read and seen on video, it's a much better sheath than this leather one. It's not going to deteriorate. It's not going to get moldy. It's not going to scuff up. It's kydex, and it has all the qualities that this sheath has, but it's going to be in a much thinner, smaller package because it is kydex, and it's going to disappear out to a lot more extent than this sheath. This sheath is pretty thick. But kydex is so thin that you're not going to have the footprinting issues that you might have with this when wearing certain clothing. So I'm really, sometime in the future I will have a Southern Comfort sheath. And I'd love to show it to you when I get it, but right now I can't swing it. I don't know how much it cost. I've had a sheath made by Mike of River City Sheaths for my Royal, and I'm really happy with it. But I just don't need to be spending money, period, at the time right now. But that's about it. If you want the Laredo Bowie and you want to get the 01 version, by all means get it. I like 01 steel. It's a carbon steel. But if you want a traditional sheath, but with modern materials, you don't want the Securex sheath, get Mike at River City Sheaths a call and have him make you a custom sheath that will act just like this sheath, but only better. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm a Satsu 5, and I'm out.